All right, I want you to imagine something. You're standing on the bridge of a lone U.S. destroyer, cutting through some of the most contested waters on the entire planet. It's late, it's pitch black, and in just a few seconds, what was a totally routine patrol is about to become an absolutely desperate fight for survival. This is the story of what happens when the most advanced military technology in the world smacks headfirst into a simple, brutal, and terrifying math problem.
So let's zero in on this exact moment. We're on board the USS Thomas Hudner, a state-of-the-art Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. And this date, this time, it's critical. Because this is when the radar operator sees something that sets off every single alarm on that ship, both the literal ones and the ones deep in their gut.
57. That's the number that just exploded onto their radar screens. You know, not one or two blips, but 57 unidentified contacts popping up at the same time from behind an island. And they're all accelerating to combat speed, heading right for them.
It took about 90 nerve-shredding seconds to figure out what they were looking at. These weren't fishing boats. This was a dispersed swarm of Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats coming at them from multiple angles. And the worst part? Some of them were packed with explosives, basically remote-controlled bombs on the water. Suicide drones. The fight was on.
Instantly, everyone on the Hudner's crew is faced with this absolutely chilling calculation. You see, this wasn't going to be a battle of who has the better tech. Not really. This was going to be a race against numbers, against time, and against the very real limits of their own ammunition.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It tells the whole story. On one side, you've got this billion-dollar warship, an absolute marvel of engineering. And on the other, a horde of cheap, fast, and frankly expendable drone boats. Their whole strategy isn't to win a fair fight. It's to just overwhelm the destroyer with sheer numbers.
And this quote from the source material, it just hits the nail on the head. The ship's last line of automated defense, these two phalanx CIWS guns, they each have 1,550 rounds. Sounds like a lot, right? But they fire at 75 rounds a second. That means each gun has only about 20 seconds of continuous fire before it's empty. They had to stop 57 boats. You see the problem.
Okay, so let's walk through how this unwinnable math problem actually played out in real time. What happens next is 11 minutes of just controlled chaos, picture-perfect defense, and a relentless countdown to zero.
For the first few minutes, the defense is textbook. It's flawless. The ship's main 5-inch gun starts picking them off from a distance. Then the phalanx systems, the CIWS, kick in automatically, just shredding boats coming from the front and the back. But look at the numbers. 11 down, sure, but there are still 46 to go, and they are getting dangerously close. And this is where that math as a monster idea really comes to life. A few minutes later, the boats are so close they can fire RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, at the ship. The CIWS systems are amazing. They're intercepting those too, but every single shot costs precious ammo. You can see the forward gun is already down 1,000 rounds. The aft gun is almost the same. Even when you're performing perfectly, you can't change the math.
This is how the source describes the sound of that phalanx CWS firing 75 rounds per second. It's an incredible sound. It's the sound of protection, of these tungsten slugs just ripping a threat to pieces. But for the crew on that bridge, it was also the sound of a clock ticking down to zero. A sound that meant they were getting closer and closer to being defenseless.
And then, the moment of truth. One of the boats just peels off and makes a beeline for the ship. The forward CIWS catches it, and it detonates just 300 meters away. This confirms their absolute worst fears. These aren't just boats with guns. Some of them are floating bombs designed to ram right into them.
And that brings us to the climax of this whole thing, the moment that every single naval officer trains for, but prays they never ever have to see. This is the point where that last automated line of defense gets pushed right to its absolute breaking point.
By 10:31 p.m., this was it. 75. That's how many rounds were left in the forward CIWS. The rear system had already gone quiet. Its magazine was totally empty. This one gun was the only thing standing between the Hudner and 21 remaining boats.
And then, at 10:32 p.m., after it obliterated one last boat making a desperate run, the system went silent. That mechanical roar just stopped. The last automated line of defense was gone. The guns were dry.
So what do you do now? This is the absolute nightmare scenario. You've still got 18 boats closing in on you. With the CIWS out of ammo, the fight becomes brutally manual. We're talking about sailors with M4 rifles and 50 caliber machine guns firing from the railings of the ship against incoming suicide boats.
And it wasn't enough. 2 of the suicide boats got through. The first one slammed into the port side, blew a massive hole in the hull, and killed 4 sailors instantly. The second hit the stern, crippling the rudder. The ship was wounded, it was flooding, and it was still under attack. The price of just surviving was devastatingly high.
Then, just as suddenly as it all started, the attack was over. The boats that were left just turned and retreated. The Hudner had survived, but barely. And as its crew was fighting fires and trying to stop the flooding, the U.S. Navy was forced to confront a new and frankly terrifying reality. The analysis that happened after sent absolute shockwaves through the Pentagon. The conclusions were just stark, and you couldn't argue with them. Number 1, swarm attacks work. 2, ammo runs out, and you can't just reload in the middle of a fight. 3, a single ship, no matter how high-tech, can be taken down. And maybe worst of all, Iran had just successfully tested U.S. defenses, and they found the exact breaking point. And this chart just lays out the brutal, raw economics that makes this kind of warfare so dangerous. Iran lost 18 boats. Let's estimate that at about $1.8 million. The cost to repair the USS Thomas Hudner, $85 million. And that's not even counting the tragic human cost. From their perspective, it's a devastatingly effective strategy.
Yeah, the attack on the Thomas Hudner, it wasn't just a close call. It was a paradigm shift. It was a clear, bloody signal that the fundamental rules of modern naval combat had just been completely rewritten.
The Navy's response was incredibly fast. Within 48 hours, they changed standing orders. No more ships going through the Strait of Hormuz alone. Destroyers would now carry way more ammunition. And, crucially, they loosened the rules of engagement. Basically, giving ships the green light to engage potential threats much sooner, before the math could turn against them.
So what we've been watching here, it has a name. It's called asymmetric warfare. And the whole point isn't necessarily to sink a destroyer in a big, decisive battle. The point is to prove you can make it bleed. It's using cheap, simple, numerous weapons to find the exact breaking point of a very complex, very expensive defense system. And on February 9th, it worked. The ship was towed to Bahrain. It got repaired, it got rearmed, and by June, just 4 months later, it was back on patrol in those exact same waters. It's an incredible testament to the resilience of that crew and the Navy. But the strategic problem that the attack exposed, well, that was still very much there.
And that's really the crucial takeaway from all this. The ship's defenses, they worked perfectly, exactly as they were designed. The failure wasn't mechanical, it was mathematical. There were simply more targets than there were bullets. And that leaves us, and naval strategists all over the world, with a very, very difficult question. The ship was fixed, the ammo was restocked, but in this new era of warfare, how do you fix the math?